You're not greedy for wanting to earn properly from teaching music. It's okay to want stability. It means that you care about keeping your music and career alive. The real issue is that a lot of musicians feel guilty the moment they think about raising their prices. So they keep their lessons cheap, they take on more students, and end up exhausted, often barely earning enough to survive. So in this video, I want to show you why you don't need to feel guilty about getting paid what you're worth, because that's what keeps your passion alive, your students inspired, and your creativity flowing. I feel like as musicians, we've all been fed this idea that if you really love music, you shouldn't care about money, that struggling for your art is somehow more authentic, and that earning properly means you've sold out. But it's a lie. You can make good money and make good art. You can care deeply about your students and charge fairly for your time. When I started teaching, I kept my rates low because I wanted to be the good guy. I told myself it was about passion and accessibility, but really I was just scared of looking greedy. And by the end of the week, I was teaching a lot, right? I was teaching every hour that I could. I was completely drained and I was still worried about money. Charging fairly doesn't make you greedy, it makes you responsible. Because when what you earn actually supports your life, you can teach better, you can play better, and you can give more to your students. If you want a quick test for whether or not your pricing is fair, ask yourself, could I keep doing this for the next 3 years and still love it? If the answer is no, it's not fair to you or your students. You don't have to choose between making art and making a living. Sustainability isn't selling out, it's what keeps your music alive. And if you've ever thought, yeah, but what about the people who can't afford it? That's the next trap that people fall into. Once you realize that charging fairly isn't greedy, the next thought is often, yeah, but music should be for everyone. And that's true. It should be. But keeping your rates low doesn't actually make that happen. A lot of teachers hold on to low pricing because it feels generous, like you're helping people who otherwise couldn't afford lessons. But the truth is, music education has never been more accessible than it is now. There's free content everywhere on YouTube, apps, and online communities. But that's exactly why you've got to think about what you have to offer amongst everything else that's already out there. In a world full of cheap and free options, undercharging doesn't make you generous. It just will end up draining you. If you want your lessons to be affordable for everyone, it's going to cost you something, right? Whether that's time or money or energy. And big companies can afford to teach cheap because they have teams and budgets to outspend you. And if you try and match them, you're not making music more accessible. You're just joining in a race to the bottom that you can't win. And if teaching stops being sustainable, there won't be any teachers left. When good teachers can't make a living, they quit. And when that happens, nobody gets access. If you care about keeping music education alive, make your own work sustainable first. Because when your income's solid, you can help more people, whether that's through free workshops or group programs or scholarships or whatever it may be. And look, I'm not saying you should be price gouging little Timmy down the street whose family's doing it tough, right? Obviously, if you want to help someone like that, that's great, help them. But what we're talking about here is your sustainability. And making a living from teaching isn't the opposite of generosity. It's what makes generosity possible. But there's also another reason teachers keep their prices low, and it's got nothing to do with guilt. It's the belief that charging less will somehow bring in more students. At some point, every teacher has a similar thought to like, if I keep my prices just a bit lower than everyone else, then I'll get more students. And again, I did the same thing, right? At first, it'll work, right? You might fill your schedule up, you feel a little bit busy and it feels right. But a couple of things happen. A few months in, you'll be exhausted, right? You're teaching a lot, but because of these low rates, you're probably still a little bit stressed about money. All that effort isn't necessarily building momentum. It's just kind of keeping you afloat, right? And it's a simple loop. You lower your price, you kind of fill out your schedule, then you end up burning out, your energy will dip, students might quit, and then you're kind of back to where you started. And it doesn't just affect you, right? Every time you play a wedding gig for cheap, or you take an exposure gig, or you drop your rate to stay competitive, It trains people to expect less from all of us. You're not just hurting your own income, you're lowering the bar for every other musician trying to make a living. Undercutting doesn't just devalue you, it devalues music itself. So instead of being the cheapest option, be the clearest option or the best option, right? People don't always choose the lowest price. They choose the teacher who gives them confidence in the result. When you charge fairly and you back it up with real value, you're not excluding people, you're setting a standard for what good teaching is worth. So take a minute after this video and ask yourself, instead of what's everyone else charging, what if you ask, what result do I actually help my students achieve? Because when you think about the value of what you offer as the result you provide, not the time you give, it becomes much easier to charge fairly. And this is where things start to feel personal, because once you stop worrying about the competition, the question usually turns inward. It's not necessarily, will people pay this? It's more, am I good enough to charge it? Maybe you don't really struggle with raising your prices, but you struggle with feeling worthy of them. There's that little voice that goes, who am I to charge this much? And honestly, it's a fair question, right? It means that you care about the value you're giving and not just what you're earning. You want what you offer to match what people pay, and that's exactly how it should be. But here's what most teachers miss. Raising your prices is one of the best ways to become a better teacher. When students pay a bit more, they show up more seriously, right? They practice, they listen, they care about their results. And when that happens, you care more too. You start planning better lessons, right? You give sharper feedback and you're paying closer attention to their progress. You hold yourself to a higher standard because you know they're trusting you at a bit of a higher level. When I first charged over $1,000 for my drum coaching program, I didn't feel ready, right? I felt pressure, but it was good pressure. It really pushed me to refine what I taught and make sure that every student got real results. Higher prices don't just attract better students, they create better teachers. And just to be clear, this doesn't mean suddenly charging, $500 a month and hoping for the best, right? It means working your way there by improving your skills, your systems, and your results while earning enough to stay in the game long enough to grow. When both you and your students have more skin in the game, everyone shows up better. Believing you're worth more is one thing, but actually charging it, that's where the next fear usually shows up. People will say, yeah, but if I raise my prices, everyone's going to leave. And that's not about ethics anymore. It's just fear, right? It's fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of hearing, that's too expensive. But here's the truth. When you're undercharging, you're already losing, okay? Time, energy, and respect for your own work. Keeping your prices low to avoid rejection is just trading long-term stability for short-term comfort. And yeah, when you raise your prices, a few students might leave, and that's fine because the ones who stay and the ones who come after are the ones who actually value what you do. You don't want every student, you want the right students. The ones who show up prepared, the ones who practice, and the ones who treat your time with respect. If someone truly can't afford your rate, that's okay. As I said earlier, you point them in the direction of something that fits their budget. There's more free and cheap resources out there than ever before. Even if you doubled your rate and half of your students left, you'd still earn the same, but you'd be working half the amount of time. The difference is now you're teaching the students who are engaged and reliable and fun to work with. When I launched my first online drum program, my mentor told me to charge $1,000, okay? I laughed in his face and I said, no one's gonna pay that. But they did. And by the end, I was charging double that and I had over 100 students go through that program. And that's when it clicked, right? Higher prices, they don't push people away. They filtered the ones who were actually serious and who I really wanted to work with. Because when someone pays properly, they take it seriously. They practice, they listen, and they actually implement what you teach. And because they care more, you get to care about the right things, like their progress, and not like chasing up payments or scheduling makeup lessons. Some students might leave when you raise your rates, and that's okay. But you'll replace them with the kind of students you actually want to teach. The ones who show up, the ones who practice, and and pay on time and actually value what you do. So this video is about letting go of the guilt around money and understanding that charging fairly isn't greedy. It's what allows you to teach better, attract the right students, and keep your passion for music alive. If you want help putting this into practice, join Musician Freedom. Links down below. It's a free community of working musicians learning how to earn properly from teaching online without burning out, right? Click the link down below and I'll see you inside.